For this section, we're going to use what we know about solving systems of equation using substitution and apply it to solving word problems. So the first example that we're going to do, I got it from the book. It's on page 384 and it's number 2. I did slightly change the directions. In the book, they ask you to use a table. We're not going to do that. We're just going to solve it using equations. So here's our example. They tell us that an adult ticket to a school play costs $5 and a student ticket costs $3. So I'm going to start by underlining things that I know. So I know an adult ticket is $5. I know that a student ticket is $3. They also tell you that a total of $460 was collected on a sale of 120 tickets. How many student tickets were purchased? So we're going to start by defining our variables. That's always the first step I want you to do in these problems. And when I give you a test or a quiz, you will always be asked to do this first. So our variables we can think of them two ways. We can think of them as the things that we're trying to find, or also the things that we don't know. There are unknowns. So in this case, we're trying to find how many student tickets were purchased. That's our question at the end. So we're looking for the number of student tickets. So I am going to call that S, and I'm going to say that's the number of student tickets. That's what I'm looking for. This should be variables, plural, by the way. The other thing that I don't know, they don't ask me to find it, but I don't know how many adult tickets there are either. However, I need to define that as a variable in order to actually solve this problem. So it's important that when you're doing this, that you don't just write the answer, that you don't just find what they're asking you for, but you find all of your unknowns. So in this case, I'm going to call A the number of adult tickets. Now, if you want to use X and Y, that's fine. Sometimes people don't like to use S's because they look like 5s. The main reason I do this is because when I get to the very end of the problem and I get something like S equals a number, I'll know immediately that S is the number of students. However, if you define them clearly and you use X and Y, you should have no problems with that. So when I'm working with word problems, once I have my variables defined, my second step is to write my equations. And it's important that you do this. I realize that some problems are going to be easy and you'll be able to do them in your head, but even if I give you an easy problem, I still want you to try to write out the equations so that you can practice doing it for when we get to harder things. So we're going to write our equations using what we have up above. So I wrote out a few things. We know that an adult ticket is $5, a student ticket is $3. The total amount of money was $460. The total amount of tickets was $120. So I always personally like to start by looking at what the things I have that are totals are. So I know I had a total of $460. I also know that I had a total of 120 tickets. I know that A is my number of adult tickets, and I know that S is my number of student tickets. So now I'm going to use those to help me out. So I'm going to end up with two equations here, and I'm going to use these totals. So this is the total amount of money, and this is the total amount of tickets. So I'm actually going to make two equations, one with money, one with tickets. So I'm going to start with my money one. I know that it was $5 for adults, so 5 times the number of adults, which is A, is going to give me the total number of tickets, or the total amount of money I made from adults. The total amount of money I made from students is going to be $3 times the number of students, which is S. And we're going to add those together. So this is actually, for most people, it's the easier equation to get. The second one is usually the harder one, and it's actually a more simple equation. So remember, there's one that seems that it should be super hard, but it's actually a simple equation. So the total number of tickets, I know there were A, adults, and that there were S, students. So if I just add the two of those things together, I'm going to get my number of adults. And that is how I get my equations for those. So my last thing I need to do is step 3, which is solving my equations. And for that, you're going to use the things that you learned about solving systems of equations with substitution. So we have 5a plus 3s equals 460. We have a plus s equals 120. Now you're going to use what you know from substitution in order to solve this. So for this first thing, we can either get this a by itself, we can either get this s by itself, or this a or this s. It's your decision which one you want to do. However, either the 2 in the second equation is going to be the easiest. So I recommend that you try one of those two. So I'm going to go for the first a. I'm going to do that by subtracting s from both sides. I get a equals 120 minus s. So now I'm going to take that right there, substitute it into the other equation. Make sure you put it into the a because we know that this equals a. When you do that, you get 5 times 120 minus s plus 3s equals 460. We're going to keep on solving. So for this one, I'm going to distribute, and if you want, you can work it out on the side. Don't automatically reach for your calculator because it's not too horrible to multiply it on the side. So we're going to end up getting 600 minus 5s plus 3s equals 460. That's going to give you 600 minus 2s equals 460. So then we're going to subtract 600 from both sides. We get negative 2s equals negative 140. Our answer for s is going to be 70. Now, when you're doing these, I'd like you to always go back and make sure that you get both answers. So then I'm going to take this equation that I had there, substitute in the 70 for s, and that gives me that a equals 50. I actually didn't need to do that last step because you might notice that the problem was actually only asking you for student tickets. However, I want you still to do that just for practice. So your answer in the end would be 70 student tickets. Also, make sure that you give it a label in the end. You don't just put 70, you say it's 70 student tickets.